Whitetail Addictions. The hunt is on. There's no going back now. It's in your blood, a primal need that must be met. It drives you, it consumes you, it takes you to the edge. What was once a simple pastime has now become your addiction. This season, come share the excitement with a group of fellow whitetail addicts from Lone Wolf. Learn from their time-tested techniques, as well as their mistakes, and be there to experience firsthand the highs and the lows we've all come to thrive on. They are do-it-yourselfers just like you. Their season begins the moment the last one ends. And when it comes time to release an arrow, they come up big. This is Lone Wolf's Whitetail Addictions. This week on Lone Wolf's Whitetail Addictions, we're going to introduce you to a couple of new whitetail addicts, Matt Ellison and Adam Crumrin. These guys are after some giant whitetails and have some incredible footage to share with us this week. Matt Ellison lives in the Hawkeye State, where he works for the University of Iowa's athletic department. Matt's been harvesting his share of the giant bucks that have made Iowa a favorite spot for many bow hunters seeking that buck of a lifetime. But Matt got a later start on his addiction than most of the whitetail addicts we've met so far.
When I first started bow hunting, I was 23 and shot my first buck at 26. And so I got started a little bit later than most guys. I'm not so sure that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I'm going through things that right now that I'm sure other hunters went through, you know, a little earlier on in life. But to me, that just fuels that fire and the passion even more. And I'll never forget that first bow kill. I saw that deer coming across the field, and I could have swore that he was a 170-inch deer, and he came right into the decoy, and I made a good shot on him, and there was nothing like it, knowing that I got my first bow kill, and it was a nice deer. I knew he was a good one. I find myself getting really tied up in horns, worrying about certain deer. You know, who's shooting this deer? Is he still there? And then I look at my son and I think, you know what? That's not what it's about. That's not why I'm doing this. It is to a certain extent, but that's not the core value of bow hunting for me. It's being out there and watching the animals in the wild, and matching wits with them. And if you can put it on a big one, that's icing on the cake. There's just something that about it that just keeps you going, and you don't know what your life would be like without it. You don't want to think about it. You just don't want to think about what it would be like. It just scares me to death to think about what I would do if I didn't bow hunt deer.
Welcome back to Lone Wolf's Whitetail Addictions. Matt's favorite method of hunting is definitely rattling. And in a state like Iowa, who could blame him? This is a great hunting tactic for almost any part of the season, and Matt hardly ever heads for his stand without his rattling antlers. Matt knows that if he hangs his lone wolf stand in the right spot and pays close attention to the wind, it's just a matter of time until he gets the attention of a mature buck. Matt's hunting partner, Scott Meyer, is a big fan of rattling too, and the pair of hunters have experienced some great results with their calling efforts. All too often, though, when a mature buck like this giant 10-point responds to a call, his senses are working overtime, and closing the deal becomes even more of a challenge. This bruiser knew something was up and never gave Scott an opportunity for a shot. When it comes to chasing mature whitetails, Matt knows that persistence is the name of the game, and the more time he spends in the woods, the better his odds are for getting a crack at a monster buck like this one. Matt and Scott had some close calls with some giant deer in late October, but it wasn't until right before the rut in early November that their persistence would finally pay off.
Election day, November 7th. Came out here, place we call the Ball. Had a lot of activity early. This guy came in for a drink. He was a teaser, but I couldn't pass up the shot. It was just too good.
Congratulations on a great buck, Matt. Lone Wolf's Whitetail Addictions will be right back. Our next whitetail addict is Adam Crumrin. Adam lives in eastern Illinois, where he's been harvesting his share of trophy whitetails. Adam works for the Illinois Department of Transportation as a civil engineer and saves every bit of his vacation time to pursue his favorite pastime, hunting trophy whitetails.
First couple years, I just built my vacation up, and then once I had it built up, I didn't do anything. I'd take the whole month of November off, and I would just hunt. I just bow hunt every day, all day. and can finally pursue these deer the way that I wanted to. Eventually I became pretty successful on bow hunting. I got to where, you know, I could kill one good buck every year with my bow here in Illinois. And I did that for a couple years, and in Illinois you can kill 2 bucks. So that was my ultimate goal, was to kill 2 Pope and Young class animals in the same year with my bow. I worked my tail off for several years, and finally I did that. And I think I went on to do it for about 3 or 4 years in a row. I killed 2 Pope and Young animals, and one year I killed 2 in the same day. I sat a morning hunt, I killed a 145-inch 8-pointer. You know, most guys would be ecstatic with that, but I got him out of the woods, got him hanging in the shed, and I was back to the woods. You know, I drove 9 miles to another place that I hunted, climbed in the tree about noon. 2 o'clock, shot a 171-inch 11-pointer. So, you know, it's just what I do. I love to pursue these magnificent animals. There's nothing like the whitetail. You're never going to convince me that there's anything smarter than a mature whitetail. That they're the greatest animal that God ever created, and I just love pursuing them.
Adam takes his whitetail hunting seriously and has no problem passing on some great deer that a lot of hunters would be more than happy with. In late October, Adam harvested this great Illinois buck after putting a stalk on the bedded buck, but wasn't able to recruit a cameraman until after he had the buck down. With one good buck down, Adam decided to head to Ohio and meet up with his hunting partner Adam Hayes, who'd filled his tag already and offered to run the camera for him to try for his first bow kill in the state of Ohio. On the first evening of his hunt, the pair set up overlooking a standing soybean field that a bunch of does were using. They knew that with the rut just around the corner, this was a great spot to wait for a mature buck to show up. As daylight fades and the deer leave the field, Adam pulls out the antlers in hopes of calling in a big buck. And before he even finishes his rattling sequence, spots a good deer heading his way. Unfortunately, the buck picks up the scent of the does that have left the field and does the same. After watching the buck work the edge of the woodlot, Adam relocates his lone wolf tree stand overlooking the trail he'd observed the deer using. And a few days later, with a good wind and a cold front moving in, Adam moved in for the kill. Within minutes, a good buck responds to Adam's calling and comes right down the edge of the woods.
There he is, folks. The first buck in Ohio. Tell you what, this guy has got all kinds of character on him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 scoreable points.
Congratulations on a great Buckeye State bruiser, Adam.
Rattling is a great technique for calling in big bucks in the fall, but where you set up to do your rattling from could be the determining factor in whether or not you actually get a buck into bow range and get a shot off at him. We all know that 9 out of 10 big bucks will try to circle downwind of your setup when rattling, so don't make it easy for him to get your wind. Back yourself up to a river, a road, a barn, a steep bank, anything on your downwind side to cut a buck off from circling downwind of your position. If it's impossible to keep a buck from getting to your downwind side, position your stand within bow range of some type of natural funnel or an edge that a deer would normally feel safe using, like a fence line or an edge of some thick cover. Hopefully, this will still force him into bow range and give you a shot before he catches your wind. It also helps to give a buck a visual reinforcement like a decoy to convince him your rattling is the real deal and to draw him into bow range. You know, rattling is a deadly tactic for harvesting mature bucks. Just make sure that this fall you put a little bit of thought into your setup where you're going to do your rattling from before you start cracking those horns together.
Welcome back to Lone Wolf's Whitetail Addictions. Thanks to Matt Ellison and Adam Crumrin for the awesome big buck footage they compiled this past season and for sharing it with us. These guys are definitely addicted to the chase, and I'll bet we'll be seeing more of them and the monster bucks thereafter next season.